Hello, my name is Margaret Mahler, and this is my life. I was a 20th century psychiatrist who studied children's development and developed the theories of separation and individuation. I was born in a small Western Hungarian town of Sopron to a Jewish family on May 10, 1897. My mother married my father at age 19, which she felt was too young to be married and to start a family. So most of my childhood, she was miserable and her and I didn't have a close or loving relationship. But I had my father. He was there to care for me and love me, and he supported me in everything I did. 4 years after I was born, my sister Suzanne was born. That sparked my mother's motherly love. Unlike me, Suzanne was adored and loved. So growing up and seeing all the love Suzanne would receive made me have a very low self-esteem. I went to the University of Budapest in September 1916 to study the history of art, but later decided to enroll in medical school in January 1917. After 3 semesters, I transferred to the University of Munich to begin my clinical training. I soon left Munich before things began to take a turn for the worst. I decided to go to the University of Jena, and 1 year later, I graduated. The next year, I received my license and began my transition from pediatric to psychiatry. I was very active in my field and attended many seminars. That is when I met a chemist named Paul Mahler. We later got married in 1936. As the pressure from the Nazis became stronger, my husband and I fled and settled in Britain, then later in New York in 1938. The transition was difficult since we had little money and we barely spoke English. During this time, I'd always begged my parents to flee to the States since the Nazis were taking over. But my father sadly passed away a month before Hungary was invaded, and my mother died in a concentration camp. That led me to become very depressed. In 1950, I founded the Masters Children's Center in Manhattan. There, I created and taught tripartite treatment model, in which the mother participated in the treatment of the child. I was very interested in the mother-infant duality, which led me to come up with the most important work, which was the theory of separation and individuation. My studies focused primarily on the caregiver and infant interaction within the first 3 years of life. A child's emotional adjustment is dependent on their ability to psychologically separate from their caregiver. It includes a specific set of developmental phases to gain a sense of identity as a separate individual. The first phase is the normal autistic phase. This phase takes place in the first week of life. During this time, the infant sleeps a lot and is oblivious to their surroundings. The second phase is the normal symbiotic phase. This phase occurs between the first and 6 months of life. The infant is now aware of its caregiver, but there is no sense of individuality, and there is a wall between them and the rest of the world. The last phase is the separation individuation phase. This phase is divided into subphases. Hatching, which is from 5 to 9 months, the infant is more active, awake, alert, and focused. In this subphase, the child becomes interested in discovering his mother by pulling her hair, glasses, clothing, and more. The next subphase is practicing. It's from 9 to 14 months. The separation continues to develop with increased functions like walking. Although the child is able to explore freely, the child still thinks as the caregiver is unified with them and explores their surroundings while keeping an optimal distance from the caregiver. Lastly, the rapprochement subphase, which is from 15 to 24 months. It begins with the child's realization that their caregiver is separate and will not always be available to help them in dealing with the world. Typically, separation anxiety reappears. The toddler may become tentative, wanting his mother to be in sight from anything that may occur. The object constancy is 24 and up months. It's when it's a successful completion of the phases. The child understands that the mother has a separate identity and is truly a separate individual. The child begins to develop individuality. I later passed away on October 2nd, 1985. My ashes were buried beside my father in Sopron. But my legacy lived on. My theory continues to inform and inspire others. We see my theory when children are able to explore, express, and experiment throughout the classroom.